Oh my god.
Okay.
Terrifying. All right, so yeah, we are at a point where like pretty much everything except for a few edge cases are not implemented. The garbage collection I haven't been able to get to this week because I was mostly focusing on getting those other issues addressed.
That's fine.
But I'm planning to finish that up this week. And I've been going through today basically and fixing some of the outstanding bugs with closures, the captures and stuff.
Did you see the one about how we can't do a capture on like an export function name? You know, where the Erlang where you do fun and then modularity.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm talking about. The function captures, and just a few other closure uses as well that are at least fairly easy to address. So it's not like 100% accurate to say that we fully lower all Erlang syntax, but you know, because I basically panic in the compiler for a couple of those cases.
Okay.
But close enough. You know, it's basically depends on whether or not I get those things fixed by the time you give your talk or not. So I think it's probably reasonable to.
You have until about this time tomorrow.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll have that stuff done by then. It's my wife's birthday today, so I may or may not have enough time.
Okay. Then I can do 99% and just have a slide that says what is missing.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically just be like, we're basically at 100%, and Paul's fixing like the last couple bugs, you know, today or something. Yeah. Anyways, I'll let you know by tomorrow morning where that sits. And the one other outstanding issue, I guess, is making sure that the linker issues that Hans was seeing on Linux are no longer happening. You know, I was able to compile the files that mattered this weekend, but you know, I closed an issue this morning that should work now, but Hans will need to confirm that.
I can test it right now. If you give me a sec, just proceed.
I would have tested it myself, but I blew away my Linux environment yesterday because I had a build with debug info in it, which is like 30 gigs. So I didn't want to waste all that space.
Yeah, I'm thinking like right now, if we had sponsorship that we each could have a Linux VM just sitting in like Google Cloud or AWS, it would save us a lot of time because like none of our laptops can run images well enough. And we have the same problem with Windows. Like we don't have good Windows support because we can't have a Windows VM and then a container on top of that VM on our laptops.
Yeah, I'm basically thinking about firing on my desktop to sort of act as my local Linux and Windows development. And that's why I still have it around, is basically for that. But yeah, I also have like a droplet in DigitalOcean that I run various stuff on. I haven't thought about trying to use that for running builds, but I guess that might be an option.
Resources to build though?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to get a more expensive one, not like the $5 a month one or whatever. But
I have access to like a pretty two pretty beefy servers, Linux servers, like 16 cores total and like terabytes and terabytes of storage that I could, like 128 gigs of RAM, something like that I can give you guys VMs on if you want. But
yeah, it's that, Hanser, that you concentrate on, obviously since you have like normal Linux access, you concentrate on it, but also we need to figure out what are we going to do for Windows eventually. Obviously we can get them in the cloud and like we can probably get as many as we want because Microsoft is sponsoring GitHub, but like we need development boxes to like hit our heads against when we're first figuring out like why LLVM won't build or whatever, because that takes forever.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Windows box that I can test against. So
yeah, my
at
Windows
least for the LLVM stuff, I can deal with it.
It is from early last decade, so I I just
Yeah.
stopped using like PC gaming and just switched to console because it was easier with my family to like just be able to be in front of the TV. So
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty beefy PC that I was using for gaming. I just never find the time anymore to play games, so I repurposed it for a mixed Linux Windows development system. But I haven't fired it up in a while because I just haven't needed to. Most of the time, if I need a quick Linux environment, I just fire up Docker or something. But with LVM, trying to build a debug release is a real pain in the ass, because not only is the debug release like 25 gigs or something, it requires an enormous amount of memory at link time for the big shared library. So it basically kills my Docker VM like half the time. So I finally tailored it down to the point where I think I can get it to run reliably every single time. But it just takes a really long time because of all that debug info. That's really only the problem when there's a bug in LLVM, or if I need to step through code there to figure out what's going on. Like this weekend, basically without that, it was kind of like, I have no idea why this isn't working.
So do you have any idea why Mac was okay without those changes and Linux cared?
Like I said, I assume it's an optimization that was applied on Linux that was not applied on Mac.
Okay.
Might have been a race. I don't think that's the case because I was able to trigger it like 100% of the time, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a race, just that it was a very reproducible one.
So
Ultimately, though, the problem was that the location that was being stored in like the conversion context that I pass around in that pass, that location was being invalidated somehow. I don't know if that was, if the object it was coming from was freed or if something else was getting nulled out, but basically the pointer was just garbage to its like internal MLIR context. So
should the general rule going forward is for conversions we always use the original operations location and not the context location, just to be safe?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I've already been doing in most places. I actually looked to see where I had been using the location I stored in the context, and it was basically in like one or two places. So yeah, I would just follow the convention elsewhere, which is just fetching it from the location or the operation on demand. The thing that I still don't know is why exactly that was failing on Linux only. The only thing I can assume is that it might have failed like on Mac as well. It's just that the order in which things get freed was
Maybe
like more
the
aggressive
destructors
on Linux.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The destructors are more aggressive on Linux.
What does the location in the context represent? Is it supposed to represent like the location of the file the context works on, just like a?
So pretty much all the MLIR classes have access to the MLIR context that they were created from. The context sort of holds like all the storage references and everything, so that when you release a context, it releases everything that was associated with that. And so the location and in that particular situation was the location associated with the operation that was being lowered to LLVM, the original source file location.
Okay.
Like the one that we got from the source code, passed through EIR, passed down through the builder into MLIR, like that location. And it wasn't that the location was unknown in EIR or whatever. I didn't even check. Well, actually I did. It was a real location, so that wasn't the issue. The issue was that storing it in the conversion context, by the time we constructed that malloc operation, it was freed for some reason. And it wasn't clear to me why, because the operation wasn't freed. and it seemed to be specifically just the location. So I didn't actually dig around too deep to figure out why the location, like what the semantics are there that was causing that to lose its context. And it wasn't that the location object itself was freed, but that it lost its access to its underlying MLIR context.
Maybe there's a
No
different
idea why.
way of copying or cloning it that keeps it around in a way that makes it not fire the destructor that we're just missing.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a copy constructor for that. So I'm assuming that either there's a bug in the copy constructor or something else that I'm missing there. Regardless of the fact, it basically doesn't matter, but I would like to know specifically why that was happening.
When I was digging around, the pointer wasn't a garbage pointer; it was a null pointer to just no context. So I don't know if that represents that it might.
Well, let me put it this way:
like other than memory corruption, I don't know.
The seg fault says that it was a null pointer, but when I actually looked at the hex output of what the pointer value was, it was some like absurdly large number, like way at the top of the 64-bit range. So I don't know why. I think LDB was basically saying that it was a null pointer, but it was because it accessed memory that was not available. I think it just knows that it doesn't bother showing you the garbage pointer, basically. I mean, It might be something else there, but it would not be possible to allocate a pointer with that value.
Yeah, it has to be constructed. It doesn't have enough address lines.
Right. Yeah, I mean, on Intel, like the top, 8 bits or something are reserved for whatever purpose they want. So only the 48 bits, lower 48 are usable. So this address I was looking at had more than that. In any case,
the linker succeeded now on Linux, so it seems to be fixed.
Nice. Yeah, I realized that there was some things missing on Linux for some reason. I still need to do some tweaking of the target specs for some of the different platforms, because the way Rust has its linker set up, Rust can be compiled for platforms without like a standard library and stuff. But with our current set of dependencies, we always need libc and libm or compiler built-ins that provide the core libc functions we use, like memsub, memcopy, trunk, seal, all those. So I had originally defined the target specs, similar to the way Rust did it, which means that libc and libm on Linux weren't being linked. So that was causing linker errors. I had already addressed this for Mac OS a while back, but not for all the other targets. But I want to figure out a way to make that a little smarter, so that it can figure out if it needs those things based on which libraries we're linking. But right now, I don't have a good way of determining that.
Yeah, the math ones only blow up if you use math stuff in the test. So like, it's smart enough to not need it if it doesn't need it, but obviously we can't tell that ahead of time.
Right. I mean, ultimately, it depends on what functions are actually called in the library being, or in the executable being.
And it's super buried, because it might be like a formatter function for like the string parsing libraries. Sometimes use the math stuff too, and so like it's not obvious. Related to that, I looked at one of the ones where we couldn't like link the float, and for some reason the symbol it's looking for, like when I try to use Rust flit to like demangle the name, it's not a proper Rust name. Like I posted a comment to one of them, but like the name in the actual library uses
there's two mangling schemes in Rust.
Okay, well, the one that Russ Flit doesn't say that the name, like, it's close but not exact. So I don't know what the name it's looking for is not the one is not the mangled name in the library itself. So I don't know who would be mangling wrong. But like if you look at it, like they're very similar, but they're missing information. Like the name it's looking for isn't like a ZN like character count mangle the
Yeah,
way it is in the actual library.
the
And
C++
so like
mangling scheme. That's the old scheme. The new Rust one does not use that scheme anymore.
right, so like why are we looking for the old name? That's the weird part. That's the part that's weirded me out. Is like who
Yeah,
in our tree is old?
you're talking about the one that refers to like radix format or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's the Radix
integer to
format one.
string.
It's the symbol that starts with ZN68.
That's a different one, I guess.
But yeah,
Did you
there's
open an issue for that one?
one's for integers, and I
Oh,
think
there
one's
it
for
is.
floats. I
Binary
think it's the float
floats.
one, the one I looked at. The .a that we put in the the bin directory for Lumen with the arch name, that one has a ZN68 name, so like the modern Rust naming scheme. But it's looking for what you're saying is the C++ mangling scheme for some reason.
Yeah.
And the weird part is the part that's looking for it is radix format is using core format from Rust. So it should be Rust naming scheme, which is I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, I'll have to look into that one. I have both of those on my to-do list here. I dumped the integer one just before the call just to look at it. But yeah, the core format one is a strange one to be sure. And I need to double check and see how like liblumen OTP is being linked. I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but both of these issues come from liblumen OTP, and we, do quite a bit of integer and float stuff and like liblumen alloc, for example. So I'm
Right.
wondering if it might be that, the reference that it gets is different because it's compiled like in a different context entirely than the other libraries. And we may have to revisit that, but if I can't figure that out, then we'll just, I don't know what we'll do. We have to spend some time digging through that.
Since in radix format, we can't mess with it. Obviously, if we had linking issues with a lower dependency in us, we could always do the public re-export where like we would only like if we didn't want to like double link the big int stuff, we could public export it from liblumen alloc and use that version to make sure we're always using the version from liblumen alloc and we don't accidentally get like two versions from a higher up dependency on it. But with radix format, I don't think we can do that because it's Rust core. It's a Rust core trait that's messing up. So we can't really fix that.
Yeah, although it's a generic. And so the type name for anything generic is based on the context at the time the crate is compiled. And so my suspicion is that when liblumen OTP is compiled, that context is different than when the other crates are compiled. So the original link is basically with the version that's got all the other crates, and then liblumen OTP is linked in, and it's the last crate linked in, and it's expecting to have that symbol resolved, but it doesn't exist, so it can't link it. It is strange that it's the only symbol though that's jacked up like that. So I'm not exactly sure.
It's only the formatters for parsing. I haven't been able to trigger it on anything else yet. It could be like I just didn't hit the bifs that it happens on, but all the parsing ones use the formatters also internally to do their probably for the going the opposite way, like actually formatting in a certain base is what they're doing.
Yeah, it seems like both are with either the core formatter or the display trait, but in both cases, there are references to symbols that should be provided by the core crate. So it might just be linker order. That's another thing I need to double check. because liblumen OTP is linked in last, it's possible that the symbol, it can't link it because it needs to be linked before core is linked in, but I'm not 100% sure that that would actually make any difference here.
Well, whatever solution we come up with, we need to make sure that it works for like other, if we add a different libraries, because I would like liblumen OTP to not be that privileged, so it is the approach we can use for other BIF libraries or NIF libraries,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's more the way I set things up in the linker. If there's an ordering thing, then it can be fixed once for everything.
Oh, you mean whether we end up doing pre-pen path or append path by default? That's our fix.
Even lower level than that, it's like the specific order in which the linker is fed the libraries to link. So generally speaking, you always want symbols to be linked in that resolve symbols in previous libraries, rather than have open dependencies at the end. So you can't just link things in arbitrary order. There has to be some order to it. The thing that I'm not 100% sure with is why, if there is an ordering issue there, why it's not more, egregious, where a bunch of symbols are unresolved. But I don't know. I need to spend some time poking around with that. The problem with linkers in general is that they're crazy complicated to work with. So there's always like black magic involved to try and figure out anything with them. Other than that, though, yeah, I guess for the next day, I'll try and get some of those remaining bugs around closures and stuff wrapped up.
I would say if we get the closure, we can be more confident with the 100% without a asterisk by it.
Right. That's
obviously the GC not being done is fine. Like my claim is that we have all of Erlang syntax lowerable, so being able to lower the capture is more important for that claim than other ones.
Somebody asks you about parse transforms, tell them no.
I didn't even think of that. Holy shit! Yeah, God.
I mean, once we flesh out the partial evaluator in the front end more, then we could do parse transforms. But
yeah,
we're not at that point.
We're going to need parse transforms to support the tests, aren't we? Or do the actual ones in Erlang OTP not?
I think there's only one application in OTP itself that uses parse transforms.
There are some in the test suite that I ran into, if I don't remember wrong.
Okay. Well, like I'm fine with not including that. Whatever.
I mean, it's more like a smart-ass question to ask, like, oh, you support 100% of Erlang syntax, huh? How about parse transforms?
Well,
technically Erlang syntax.
Like the solution to that is just to like call Erl with like the expand argument.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, I do, because the Docker people want more explanation, so I actually go through taking display atom, the test for display one, where it just displays an atom and shows the steps. So I do explain that for every other language besides Erlang, we have to decompile it from the beams. So it is kind of implied that like the decompiled Erlang is going to be different than normal Erlang. I don't explicitly say that, but I don't know. I'm still adding all those changes, so I still have to make sure it fits in time now. It was short before, so I had time to fit this.
For the Elixir compiler, Elixir Lumen compiler path, we actually don't go through Erlang at all. We just go through like the abstract Erlang format, which is like a listing format. It's not normal Erlang.
Yeah, I knew that, but I didn't know if that would be. I don't know if that'd be true for every other language, and I want to, even though I say Elixir, even though like the graphic says Elixir, I make it very clear that it works for other stuff too. And I wasn't sure we would. I mean, we probably can do that for everything because it's using debug guy for everything, right? The current way I'm phrasing it is I still say we use mixed decompile because we haven't updated the mix tool yet.
So like making it work is like really, really simple, at least for a proof of concept. But like I tried to do it, but then I ran into issues with some of the files that were generated. But yeah, it's probably not worth using that
Right.
for
I'm
for
kind
the
of mixed
conference.
decompile because like we know that works because I did it for the Lone Star thing. Was I use mixed decompile on Elixir source, so like we know that works. So I'm claiming that's how it works right now.
Yeah.
But related to that, since I mean, I obviously don't have that many hours to do this, but do we want to try to in GitHub Actions package like a tarball at least for Mac with like the Lumen compiler? Here you go.
Yeah, I mean that seems fine to provide a release.
So so just to verify, that would be the equivalent of I just grab the bin directory, right? Because the bin directory has that nested architecture specific directory, and that's all I need to grab.
I can package it up and then send it to you and have you test it here.
You're fixing other stuff, and then I would, while you're doing that, I would, sit waiting for the build to try over and over again to get it right.
Yeah, I mean, I have a script that I started putting together already to package this stuff.
Okay, yeah. I'll iterate on that then while you fix
I need
that.
to add that to the repository, but the reason I haven't yet is because I was constantly changing it. So I'll run that and then send you a release. And if it works, great. If not, I'll just hand it over to you and continue working on the other bugs. That way, we're not spinning our wheels. But I can at least, I can get both the Linux and Mac OS one done like in the next hour.
Okay.
I'll build it against the latest good build on develop, which I guess is latest.
We should merge the PR with update EIR first. It passes all the tests.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and then
that's going to give you a couple of things that we want.
If we have a release, like I'm not going to merge it to master because I would probably just replace master with develop, and we need to rename master probably to main 2 to follow the new guidelines anyway.
But you can do a fast forward merge to master.
Right. So like since it's a release, we can now say that's master. I guess what's our version number? I never looked. Like, do we have a version number?
010 basically at this point.
Okay, that's fine.
That's what all the crates have. But I don't know. We can make it whatever we want. It's definitely not 1.0. So
no. Yeah,
and I guess now that we're actually, creating a release, we can start tracking that. Just start at 010 and bump it every time we actually do a release.
Mm-hmm.
Since we haven't actually been producing releases, there hasn't really been a meaningful version number to track anyways. So
is there a way with Cargo to append like the date to make it like a nightly build?
Sure. I mean, what do you mean?
Oh, like we would have 010 -dev plus, and then you put the date. I'm just thinking about like how RPMs are versioned, where you put like a
yeah. I mean, that would be up to our packager.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like
Cargo specifically.
Okay.
I don't think Cargo will do any sort of mangling with versions to reflect like the tool chain it was built against or whatever. That's all stuff that they do in Rust itself.
Okay.
For the Rust releases, their build script handles doing that.
Okay, yeah, because if we can both say it and it's available, I can be like I can add like and you can use it. Obviously, Lars, this will probably mean we need a website change queued up.
I'm awake.
We will have how to download it, and that might go up. It depends whether we get the release up or not.
I can ping you as soon as it's published if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, just ping me whenever. Are you planning this for before the talk or after the talk?
Well,
or
I guess we probably should have the PR for it queued up, and then we swap it after the fact. You know, Apple Keynote style, and you can get it now, and then like we swap it.
as soon as the GitHub thing
The GitHub pages
rebuilds,
rebuilds, yeah.
Oh shit, the build failed.
The build failed?
No, like the
no,
GitHub pages
good
build
joke.
failed because there was a Jekyll update we didn't get or something like that.
Oh, right.
Perfect.
Oh, which reminds
Always
me, I need
happens to happen.
yeah, and I also need to update the README for the LLVM version because I don't think I did it, and I don't think you did it either, Paul. Right?
Yeah, I can update it.
Okay.
Yeah,
if you
someone
want
definitely moved my examples. I got an issue about that.
Oh yeah, we split them out. Sorry, Lars.
It's done. It's fixed. But yeah, just let me know what we want to expose. But it's basically the download locations and like some download setup instructions to get started and trying the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll probably add them to the README too, but
yeah, but having some explicit, like what will the delivery look like?
I mean, in the near term, it's
Probably
going to
a
be
tarball.
download a tarball and then extract, and you'll have an executable that you can drop somewhere and run. Longer term, it'll probably look more like Rust up with tool chains.
yeah.
But it will be one build for Linux, one for Windows, one for Mac, or something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's nice to link those.
We'll have to
directly
make
from the
sure
site.
that us building on latest Mac doesn't cause problems for older Mac, because I know that like the version number says Darwin 10 dot whatever, like it includes the Mac OS version number in the Darwin name.
Yeah.
What are you building on? Catalina, Big Sur?
I'm on.
We're always on latest because that's how
Mojave or
the
whatever.
Mac boxes work on Mac Stadium, and so
I imagine.
Oh, no, I
that's
am on
Catalina
Catalina, I
because
forgot.
Big Sur is still in beta.
yeah. So we'll have to see if we have to explicitly tell it to go backwards in time or not. But for now, we'll just go with it. Like we know it works for us, and obviously we don't claim a vast range of support for stuff.
We're not actually linking against anything like real specific to a particular release of Mac OS right now. So as long as the symbols are present for like the core libraries, like it's essentially the system libc, it'll be fine. And the way the dynamic linker on Mac
because
OS
of the
works
name is what I was worried about, because like the name won't match.
the name is irrelevant. That's just something that's appended because I put the target triple in there. But yeah, it won't matter as far as looking up any symbols. The only thing that would be risk is if like some library we're using is calling an API that's like brand new and only present on recent versions. But as far as I'm aware, we're not doing anything specific to Mac OS.
But if you know what the release will be called, so you know where the download locations are, I could absolutely.
Oh, it'll just use the GitHub releases thing.
Yeah, but I wonder if that ends up having like a chunk of random strings or something.
It does, but GitHub supports the way of getting the latest, I thought. Doesn't it?
I think it's like /releases/latest, and it just redirects you.
Yeah, I thought there was a redirect. If there isn't, I know the GitHub API supports it, but obviously then we would have to run job.
You can play around with it by just looking at our LLVM repo and looking at the releases there to see if you can hotline to like a specific recent release. They're associated with a tag. So if we do like lumen-0.1.0.tar.gz or whatever, it will be always that release version.
So lumen/LLVM project /releases/latest redirects you to the latest release. So just use that.
So yeah, we should just use that then.
Yeah. /download apparently seems to be a direct download.
Oh, nice. Is that which download does that direct you to?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll go for latest / releases though.
Yeah, until we understand
Wait.
how to do an OS picker the way that like the Rust sub install instructions do on a GitHub pages thing, we should probably just say, go here and grab the tarball you need.
Cool. I
The other thing
set
is
that up.
the linker is still using whatever the system CC is, right? It's not, or do we spit out CC, or are we really running CC?
Yeah, I mean, we're calling the system linker generally by default. We do package and provide our own linker that can be used by passing a flag,
Okay.
in favor of whatever the system linker is. That's LLD is what gets linked for that.
Right. So do we probably need to include that, because like it's not just like you have the Lumen thing and it just works. I mean that's true of Rust though too.
I mean, if we have developers that don't have a C compiler installed, like that's not even possible as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Let's just go with we don't mention it until if enough people report it as a thing, we'll mention it as a thing. But
especially on Linux, like you're just simply not going to have a assembler pre-packaged. That's almost always there. Anything above and beyond that, though, system library-wise, that could be a potential problem. But again, I think we statically link basically all of our dependencies. The exception to that is libc/libm, which would be provided on most systems anyways, because they're effectively standards that people use everywhere. And that's specific to Linux. On Mac OS, we link against the system framework, and that has all those symbols provided, so we're not doing anything on Mac OS. Windows, we do not properly support anyways right now, so we're going to omit that from the releases for at least this particular release. Ultimately, we'll go and address the problems on that platform, but until we get further along, there's no point in putting energy into that unless somebody is like actively interested in contributing on that platform.
I mean, anyone who wants to try it out will probably just use Whistle anyway. It should work in there. Like the Linux subsystem.
Yeah.
Luke, another small caveat for the 100% Erlang support thing. Like there's two really pedantic edge cases I've been working on today. One is some cases in binary generators, and the other is correctly handling all the different so like when you have arithmetic in patterns, the compiler needs to statically evaluate that in order for it to become a constant. So handling all the cases in that and the extra cases in binary generators. And that's all I know of that isn't implemented. But hopefully I should be done
Look,
with that.
you're going to make me not use the big fact side, and I'm not going to have a multicolored 100.
Yeah, no, I'll try to get it done tomorrow. It's not that much work. That's probably fine, but we'll see.
I mean, the reality is supporting 100% Erlang syntax is a bit of a like fuzzy target anyways, because there is no specification for the parser. And I'm not even sure that if you asked one of the people responsible for maintaining it at Ericsson, that they would even be able to identify all the different edge cases of the syntax.
So, that's the thing, like,
it's not defined.
Support all the constructs. I think that's the way to. Yeah.
I will phrase it that way, because like in the ran.url, like I have no idea why it has a named return value. X isn't used anywhere else. I don't know why they did that.
Wait, what are you talking about? In ran.url,
we had a bug where EIR couldn't handle named return values. But it's just the return value that's named. It's just like X is a term. I don't know why it's named, but it needs to be supported.
So like X equals whatever the last line in the function.
Yeah, it was that thing you fixed with ran.url. Hans, and like it was
Okay.
like I don't understand why it's useful, but like it needs to be supported because Rand uses it.
That just falls out of the fact that like when you have an assignment like that, it actually returns the value, the result of it. That's actually like a match, and it also returns the value of
Yeah.
it. So you could do several of those after each other. But like the problem was that I just handled like when referring to a very I short circuited in one way that I didn't handle returning like location information correctly or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was
Well, I'm not really saying that
solution.
like it was a problem with ours. It was more like it's a weird construct. People, it was the first time I'd seen it in Erlang, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a thing we have to support now.
So like I think the way for us to support Erlang properly is to just run it on loads of stuff and see where it fails and fix that.
Yeah, I am calling out in future work where like we were going to try to get all of we have Erlang OTP forked. We're going to try to get them all done, and then we're going to. I'm very explicitly using the term we're going to use the Erlang tests as a stand-in for Erlang spec because there is no specification.
Yeah.
You know, trying to relate to like Ruby spec and other languages that they ended up eventually getting a spec because they needed it, but Erlang hasn't had one right now.
Yeah, it'd be nice to push for that at some point. There was a spec, at least for core, at one point, but it's so woefully out of date that it's essentially irrelevant.
Well, and the thing is, well, Ruby spec after Rubinius like got mad at them and threw up their hands. Now it's maintained, but like Ruby was only standardized once, and they've just never gone through the trouble of doing it again. So like technically, Ruby hasn't been standardized since like '98 or something. Like it's like really long ago or something. Like well, not '98.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the entire purpose should really be if you're going to generate a spec, you know, do your evolution, language evolution on the spec. But
yeah, I mean, but only HTML has been, and the W3C stuff has been smart enough to be like calling them living standards, so they can keep doing that. But
yeah.
So that's like the fun part about working on a parcel like that is that you sort of start thinking about things that no one else has thought about before on the language.
Yeah.
Because like they don't have a proper parser generator, do they? They just do things kind of ad hoc in places. So
Yeah.
some things kind of don't really make sense when you think about them, but you sort of have to figure out how to support it. Yeah.
well,
I mean, you saw the brunt of that, Paul, when you wrote the thing originally. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, Elixir has the same problem of like the way that the do blocks bind to the outermost thing. It just happens to be easy in Yak because of the type of parser it is, and it was a pain in the ass to do it in IntelliJ Elixir because it was the other kind of parser, and like
Antler or something.
Yeah, because it turns out that Yak style parsers can't tell you what they need next, so they suck at reporting errors.
I mean the version of Yak that Erlang bundles and uses as its parser generator is not like restricted the same way like Bison is or something.
Oh,
no, it has its own like sort of loose version that it works with, and then it generates this parse tree, and then it post processes that to do all of like the sort of cleaning up and validation and stuff. But the semantics of that parse tree are basically completely undefined. Like I had to spend a bunch of time digging around to try and figure out how it was actually parsing certain things, just to start fixing some of the edge cases I found. And Hans has done a ton more since then. I mean, it's just a pain in the ass to try and like match that like one for one. It's essentially, you're always going to be chasing some weird edge case. Luckily, the OTP code base itself provides a lot of useful examples for some of that because their parser tests, or especially the pre-processor tests, have all sorts of crazy syntax in them. And honestly, the preprocessor is the thing that fucks it up the most. If it wasn't for the preprocessor, it'd be way, way easier to deal with Erlang. But the preprocessor lets you do just about whatever you want, just like the C preprocessor does. And also overcomplicates how you like lex and parse the language. You can't just like do what you do with most languages, which is just tokenize it and feed it into a parser. your tokenizer Elixir has to also handle some of the pre-processing logic, because it has to include files, and then it has to potentially like glue tokens into new streams as you're producing that actual token stream that the parser operates on.
Does Erlang also have the problem with plus being arity 1 and 2? Because like Elixir, I've never been able to get it right of when the plus sign binds as 0 or 1 arity and 2 arity correctly, especially with
that's the other problem, is there's no associativity or precedence definitions in the Erlang parser generator. And so it's essentially, they define it by having separate rules for different precedence levels, but that still doesn't define associativity. They kind of hack around it by using some of those weird like numbered rule names, but it's definitely not precise in the way that having actual precedence and associativity levels are. Like Elixir's parser does that.
Yeah, it uses Yex associativity stuff, which is nice.
Just to break into all the parsing, I hope I have the right time for like Elixir Conf, but Hans, you're around the same time zone I am, like around 16 tomorrow.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't checked the time. Sorry.
God damn it.
It starts at here. I like everytimezone.com because you can pick your time and it'll show all the other time zones. So let's see. Let me get Elixir Conf tomorrow. It's Chris's keynote is at 9:20 on the 3rd.
I just don't want to be off by a day because I can't math. It's like, yeah. So I'm thinking I can prep the PR for tomorrow morning here. Which
so that's 9:15 tomorrow, and so the keynote starts at 9:20. Not when my talk does. Mine's like after the keynote. So I think if you click that link, it should show it in your time, or at least you should be able to go down and look at the European time zones.
Okay.
I mean, even if we push it out a bit before the talk, it doesn't really matter that much, I think.
Yeah, I'm not that.
Make sure that I'm
You're assuming that people know getlumen.org exists.
Yeah, okay. That seems to be accurate to what I was expecting for the time. Yeah, okay. According to my planning, I should be able to have the PR ready to go like 8 hours before, so that should be good.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned GitHub, so remember,
do you have access
you can't update
to
the
getlumen.org
website,
just
it's
so
fine.
you can merge it when you feel...
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure I'll be able to watch live. We'll see.
That's fine.
Yeah. I want to though, but baby, she's 3 months old and has opinions.
No. As long as you have a ticket, remember you'll be able to watch the talks instantly because they're like recorded, and it's not going to be, as far as I know, it's not going to be edited. So what they sent out is like even if you're a little bit behind, there's just going to be a recent link in the bottom of the web app everyone's using to watch, because we're not all using Zoom. Like, I think we might have Zoom for questions, or the event Vivo.
Is there a Q&A at all for your talk?
Yes, I'm saying yes to it, and I still need to do the run through with the Docker editions to make sure I have enough time for it. And the way it works is during the talk, they can post questions to a separate page, and then and they'll be screened by the moderators that are on staff, and then I'll just be able to look at them and then read them out and answer them. So they won't. So I don't think they're not doing everyone in a Zoom room the way ElixirConf EU Virtual did. I don't think. I think everyone is going to be watching it on the Event Vivo site instead.
Gotcha.
Which is slightly confusing because it's on a delay.
Yeah, the delay is a hard thing to avoid with live streaming and
commentary.
And
it's on like a 20-second delay. I guess probably that was for buffer safety. So it's don't watch yourself. It'll be weird. It'll be super weird.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I
But no,
guess.
But yeah, I should be able to have that ready, no problem. So you have it's just the download link for releases you want, or is
Yeah,
there anything else
yeah.
that should be prepped?
No.
Docs will just be in the README for Lumen, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll try out some things and show like how to. I'm gonna show. I already show like how to compile quickly, but I'll like show how output trigger works and like I'll use Gen server as an example of using the include path to get the HRL files because like Elixir people aren't going to be used to that thing that there are header files.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'll add it to the README, and then yeah, I guess we can just link directly to the subsection README using the auto anchors that GitHub puts in to allow them to jump to it, so it's always up to date.
Yeah, I don't really know exactly what the talk is going to be, but the idea is to look at to be ready for x86 binaries, right?
Yeah.
That's
So
still,
mostly it's
Or
you know how like at a lot of the Erlang, what used to be called Erlang factories, and I guess have been renamed how many times by Erlang Solutions now to like Code Beam and other things, where like the OTP team at Ericsson would like just give an update of what have we been doing.
Yeah.
That's what this is. But the Docker people were like, people probably don't necessarily remember, and I took out everything that seemed redundant because I've given this talk over the past year how many times now, and I put more of that back in. But I also put in an example of like, what is the compiler doing? So it goes through all the stages and all the formats that we spit out in the output directory to try to explain what the compiler is built on top of, because they want more definitions for what is EIR, what is MOIR, what is LLVM, and all that stuff. And so it's used to explain that.
But what we will see is a statically compiled binary.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That can be used to do command line stuff, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I still have to see if there's enough time to fit a true demo in, or so it might be. If I have enough time, there'll be a couple screenshots of showing it, and otherwise maybe there'll be a demo. But remember, we only have a 30-minute slot.
Okay.
So I don't know. I was able to.
Sorry, I'll need to run now because I have something I need to do.
Oh yeah, we should call it anyway. We're at an hour. This has been going on long enough. I think everyone knows what we kind of want to get done over the next 24 hours so that we can have a release.
Yeah.
And I will change the phrasing to 100% of Erlang constructs and syntax.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll post on the channel when that release is ready.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.